My best game of chess from 1908 to 1937 is a collection of over 200 games played by Alekhine. Now, Alekhine is a champion that has influenced many grandmasters. For example, in other videos I mentioned how Grandmaster Kolovic gained like 100 or 200 points after for 2-3 months he studied something like 200 games by Capablanca. Well, I think, and I know because it's written by Grandmaster Marin in his book Learn from the Legends, that he really had a relationship with a book which was 300 games by Alekhine. Obviously, you know, all the collection of games by Alekhine were recollected and remade by other grandmasters like in the 1950s, 60s, because the reality is, you know, you just have to translate it in Russian or in Romanian or in another language like Italian, and you just use the same annotation that are made by Alekhine. So that's really great. This book, however, it's really great for something that I don't think it was done in other books. They put the diagrams from the side that Alekhine is playing. So if Alekhine is playing black, you will have the diagram oriented from the black side. So that was something that I really like. So without further ado, let me show you game number 1, which is Alekhine Gregory, played in St. Petersburg 1909. Alekhine is white, okay? So he plays e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, knight c6, and it's strange because they call or categorize this as Vienna game, but honestly at this point I don't know, because generally the Vienna game you have f4, right? And here after knight c6 in reality Alekhine writes the best move is this, see game 41. So we will go to see that game to understand why, because obviously if you play this there is this and you have open the lines for your pieces, or at least I think so, and I could check if it's true or not. Let me check. Okay, I check for a second, and Alekhine doesn't play this, but he plays this. So that's kind of interesting, I think, in game 41. However, let's return back and let's check what happened in this game, right? Because after all, that's what we want to know. So it was knight c6. There is also one thing I would like to say. We believe that we need continuously more resources, but from many grandmasters that are top level grandmasters, I have seen that they just had in their childhood 1 or 2 books and they read them continuously, cover to cover. For Marin there is a collection of Rubinstein games and a collection of Alekhine's game. Gelfand, I think it was a collection of Rubinstein games, and so on and so forth. Practically most of these grandmasters just had 1 or 2 books with this collection of games that they analyze extensively. Maybe we should do the same if we want to improve, right? Okay, let's continue to see this game. d3. At a certain point here you need to support this pawn. Bishop b4, bishop g5, and knight d4. This maneuver is not to be recommended, and as the sequel shows, only results in the obstruction of the queen's bishop. The best continuation is, for Alekhine obviously, h6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes e3, b takes c3, and the queen takes f6 with equal chances, so the evaluation is equal. Now let me bring the position back. Okay, this is the position that we saw, in which Alekhine says that it's better h6 than knight d4. And now he plays a3. Bishop takes c3, b takes e3, and now we see what he means with the obstruction of the queen's bishop, because obviously this is here knight e6. Now it seems silly to comment so much already like he did, because we don't know what was really known in 1909 about opening theory, right? So that's kind of important. But at this point, if you were white, what would you play here? Because this is also an interesting topic, right? What would you play as white? Here he says the following, that for him the best move was h4, and instead if you would have played bishop d2, black would have continued with d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, queen e2, and f6. So it says this is not so advantageous. Let's see instead what happens after h4. h6. So the point here is probably another. It tells you why instead of h6 black didn't play this, because it's not so good. Because after this, where do you put this? You have to go back, right? And at this point, for him, it seems the strongest move is g6. That's kind of interesting. But the point that for me is interesting here is obviously partly the pawn structure, that is a little strange on both sides. Clearly you cannot maybe support this, I think, so that's why he wants to play this. Ooh. Kind of interesting, right? Because playing this, then you let the finger return back. Well, clearly, it's you know, it's like a cake with a lot of calories. His games are clearly full of ideas that we need to analyze and understand deeply if we are really interested in chess improvement. Okay, let's return back for a second to what it was, right? Tac, tac, tac. So I think we were like this probably. And he played h4. So here he played this, h6. At this point you need to decide if you want to exchange or not. Obviously Alekhine didn't exchange. Why? Because he wants to keep the bishop pair. And he doesn't tell you that. He just plays knight bishop d2 and he doesn't tell you that. But that's the reason, right? So why he wants to keep the bishop pair? Because obviously it's a kind of powerful duo for attacking, especially if a position will open up. That's simply a fact. But here it doesn't tell you, which means or he doesn't want to tell you, or he assumes that the reader of this game will already know that. d6, queen f3. Here it says the plan to advance the g-pawn initiated by the last move is somewhat perfunctory and devoid of real sting. The simple development by 10 knight e2 followed by 11 knight g3 would have given white the better game without any complication. So he says that he played this with the idea of playing this. But he says the best plan would have been this and this for white. Again, obviously it's his experience, not our, because if we didn't play the Vienna game for a while, we don't know what is better or not. But clearly what we can learn from Alekhine, it's a kind of opening repertoire for white. So in this case, because he's playing white, right? So after queen f3 there is bishop d7. Here we see the plan, g4, yeah, queen e7 and g5. So he says that here black should have tried to get rid of this inactive king rook. So probably it's h takes g5, h takes g5, rook takes h1, queen takes, and then go back with a knight. And after, if the queen from there goes here, he castle this side. So this should have happened for black. Instead, black played knight g8. Okay, so again, we have seen it probably in many of Capablanca's games. Once he creates a weakness on one side, in this case there is a problem on this side because you can see that it's not really natural. We are at move 12 and black has two pieces in the back rank that are not doing nothing. What is white doing now? White starts an attack on the other side with rook b1. So you are creating one weakness, now you need to create another weakness on another side of a board. Bishop c6 and knight h3. Here it says the unsatisfactory development of this knight is the direct outcome of the risky moves preceding it. So now black did something strange, in my opinion. He played king d7. Why I find this strange? Because the king is in the center, and I think it's possible that I didn't see this game lately. It seems I saw this game like 10 years ago, but I don't remember it honestly. I think the problem is that this king in the center will be attacked by white. And again, this is a theme that we find in many champions games, right? That's why we read collection of games, because we find patterns that happen in all games, and from those patterns probably we can learn, right? So if the king is kind of exposed, then we can attack it. Okay, here it says that probably instead of this move it was better to take on g5 and then castle. Okay, so queen g4, the intention being to bring the knight into the center after an exchange of pawns at f4. So he wants to play f4, he takes and take back. So that's why he's pinning this knight. Okay, and now black plays rook f8, preparing the counter attack with f5, right? Which white will, however, refute by a pretty sacrifice. In any case, black's game was already compromised in consequence of a mistake on his 14th move. So in move 14 he played king d7, so that's the mistake. But notice this, they didn't put the usual notation that we put some this notation marks. Generally a question mark indicates a blunder, right? Something that is a mistake. A double question mark, really big blunder. So this was a blunder for Alekhine. Okay, f4, and now black plays f5. What would you play now if you were white? Try to think a little, because that's also the idea of making videos, because the reader, or the watcher of the video, can try to guess some moves. In this case, white plays e takes f5, and Alekhine writes, the basic idea of this sacrifice, the consequences of which were not easy to determine, is to lure away the black queen bishop. Black queen bishop. Oh wow. Furthermore, white aims at the advance of a d pawn, which is to make black's b pawn indefensible. So as you can see, white has created a weakness or a problem on this side. He still wants to fight and create a new problem on this side. Okay, so bishop takes h1, f takes e6, and now there is king c8. Obviously, when Alekhine had to play this game, he had to calculate what happened if he plays king e8, what happened if he plays king d8. And here in the book there are both the lines, okay? So you have all of them, because it shows that Alekhine did his homework. How do you continue here as white? Try to pause the video and find out what would you play, okay? The game continues with queen g1. As you can see, he wants to attack this because this is blocked, and so there is a possibility of give a checkmate. Here it says the white queen will, without loss of time, penetrate into the vitals of the hostile position. What did black played? Black played a beautiful move, which is c6. Why it is beautiful? Because if you play now queen takes h1, there will be d5, and here at this point black has a good position. Here there is a line that that you can see if you get the book, okay? So, but obviously Alekhine wants to attack. So to attack means that you don't go to take back that bishop, right? It doesn't make any sense. He plays queen takes a7, and now there is the only way practically to prevent rook takes here, and you say, but sorry, why? If a rook takes here, I play queen here, right? No, you can't, because there is bishop a6. So that's why. So the only way to prevent that move is to play this move, c5, because then b7 is protected, okay? And obviously now you will see why Alekhine was obviously a genius, a great attacker, because he calculated all of this, and he plays d4. And he says, only this maneuver can clearly demonstrate the soundness of a combination initiated by white 17 move. No? The 17 move was e takes f5 that let black take on h1. Black cannot capture the pawn, for after e takes d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, there is bishop a5. So yeah, you cannot capture the pawn because you would open the line for this bishop that at the moment is just a pawn, right? So that's it. Queen c7 is how we continue the game, and now there is d5. Obviously the threat is to take on b7, and here Alekhine shows what he was thinking. Knight e7, rook takes b7. Remember that you cannot take because there is this, but he took. Okay, so that's the point. Oops. And here is the opponent, black, played an interesting move in my opinion, which is bishop takes d5. After this there is obviously you want to remove that bishop from protecting the queen, but I don't think you can. Yet Alekhine plays this, c4. c4 probably is interesting in another sense. You know why? Because of this. He wants to control the diagonals, right? So that's why. So the thing is, bishop a5, he says, and checkmate at the next move. Yeah, I didn't see it, but after bishop a5 you can play queen a8 and it's checkmate, because this is spin, it doesn't move, okay, it cannot move. So what did black play? Bishop, he played queen takes a6, queen takes a6, bishop b7, queen takes d6, obviously it's a slaughter at this point, knight c6, and here there is g takes h6, g takes h6, and f5. Wow, beautiful move also here. let's say that he has some other problems, however, black here. Here it says the shortest way black is for to capture the pawn, which involves the loss of the piece. Okay, so are you able to see this loss of a piece? Let me show you. After rook takes f5, there is queen d7 check, king b8, e7, and obviously you need to stop it. Knight takes e7, queen takes e7, rook h f8, king d6 check, king a8, and now, whoops, bishop takes h6, rook 8 f6, trying to fork both of them, but the queen is kind of slippery, right? Queen d8 check, king a7, and guess what? Bishop e3. Again, black tries to fork them with rook f3, but unfortunately for him there is bishop takes c5, king a6, and of course the next move ends the game. Why? Because it's queen b8, the threat is checkmate here, right? So you have to give up something, and then this falls down. It's clearly a mess. The queen is a very powerful piece, and so what can you do? I hope you guys enjoyed this game from this beautiful book that contains more than 200 games played by Alekhine in the period from 1908 to 1937. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.